Hi, this is Heidi from Garden Crossings, and it is the beginning of July, and so it's time for another tour through the garden. So I'm going to show you what's blooming this month, and maybe there's things that you've never seen before that will look intriguing to you. Feel free to leave comments below because we'd love to help answer any questions you have regarding this garden or any plants that you may have questions about. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you'll catch all the videos that we'll be doing throughout this summer. So let's take a look and walk through the garden. So to start off with, let's take a look at how the aquapot is doing. It is doing quite nice. We've got the nice palm tree there in the center with some of the Wedgwood Blue Angelonia for kind of that upright thriller. We also have a new Salvia. This is a new for 22 variety, so that's doing really nicely, along with the new for 2022 Lantana. The Argyratum, the white Argyratum, that's looking really nice. And the double petunias you're seeing there, those are the improved Priscillas. And there's a lot more flowers and a lot more fuller plant is what I'm observing with the new Priscilla. And up front here, we have the new Super Bells for 2022 as well. We'll be popping the name on the screen of what these new varieties are called because I don't have them all memorized quite yet, but they're doing very nicely in the aquapot planter. The front of the house, we have this landscape lined with bubblegum, and if you look at the June video, you'll just see how much growth these plants have done over the last month or so, filling out nicely, and they're almost to the point of running into each other. So by the end of the summer, I anticipate they're going to be well onto the sidewalk, but for being in the ground just a little over a month, they are filling out quite nice. The back planter there, that is also an aquapot, and that has the Supertunia Bordeaux in it, and that is looking really pretty. A giant mound of color. It's almost all the way down to the bottom of the pot as well, so it's trailing really beautifully. Behind the pillar rocks, we have the Pennisetum Fireworks grass, and that is just kind of a nice airy addition to this garden. I always like to add grasses in because the motion they bring really, I think, is just a nice asset to have in the garden. Our hanging baskets are finally planted. This took forever for us to do, but what we've planted in them is we have the Picasso and Purple Supertunia, Supertunia Vista Bubblegum, Supertunia Royal Velvet, and then the Mini Vista White. So hopefully the next video they'll be trailing over the planters and really filled out nicely, but for now they're just a nice mound of color. In the aquapot here on either side of the pillar, I did the Mini Rose Vein trailing Supertunia, and you can see that's quite an aggressive plant. It's pretty much taken over that whole planter. I also had some of the double amber Super Bells, which you can see just a little poke of color there of the orange, and then you see the little pokes of purple. That is the Mini Vista Indigo Petunia. So definitely that mini trailing rose vein has taken over these containers. And then the thriller we used was the perfectly pink Angelonia, which I probably should have done a little bit more because there's not a whole lot going on in that pot. The planter up against the house here, this gets a little bit more shade tucked under the front of the porch. And there is the Fireworks Fuchsia, which did really good this year. We also have the Wandering Jew, some of the double amber Super Bells, and then some funky pink begonia also. So I always do kind of the same version of this planter for the last 3 years, and it's funny because every time I did it, it's turned out drastically different. So I'm happy with this year how it's doing. I really like how that fuchsia has gotten so tall. Along the front of the house here, we have the Bobo hydrangeas that are just starting to, the buds are there, they're just starting to color up. So those are about 3 foot tall, and we keep them just nicely below the window. And honestly, this is their natural height. They're not going to get much taller than that window. This is a lilac standard tree that we recently trimmed up, so that's looking really nice and tight. I can see there's a lot of new growth happening on that, but I like that to be a nice tight feeling anchor plant here off the front of the landscape. Underneath it, we have the Anna's Magic Ball Arborvitaes, and that's about the only evergreen we have here in this garden. And I like that chartreuse color because I think that looks really nice with all the other colors that we have going on. As we head down and along the side of the hill, we've got more of the bubblegum. Beautiful hydrangea that's like in its prime right now. This is the quick fire hydrangea. And this will turn a little bit more of a reddish color as these flowers continue to age. But right now they're kind of in that white prime stage. Really a beautiful plant, just loaded with color. As we head down the hill, we have more bobo hydrangeas. And you can see there's plenty of buds. They haven't really started to open up too much yet. So those will continue to open as the summer goes along. Between each of these bobo hydrangeas, we have the pugster butterfly bush, which they aren't blooming yet either. So that should be, hopefully within the next month or so, we'll have some blooms on that. Up against the house, this is a super hot, dry area. So I've just kind of gone with big plants that do well. We have hardy hibiscus, which that's not blooming yet. We have hardy hydrangea and another hardy hibiscus. This is the dark leaved version. And then it looks like we have a rogue sunflower, which that's going to be kind of cool. In this area here, before we step down the level, we have some of the heated up gaillardia. Those are the annual gaillardias, the orange. And then there's some sedum that's kind of lining the bricks as well. The incredible blush hydrangea, that is just beautiful. And it is loaded with honeybees, bumblebees, and native bees. So I'm gonna have to be careful as I walk past that, but it is just a flurry of activity with all the pollinators. Tucked up against the house there are the mini mauvette hydrangeas, a little bit darker pink color, a little bit shorter habit. Really beautiful contrast of color. Let's take a walk past and we'll turn this around and kind of get the view from the other direction. All right, there we go. So we have the Daisy May leucanthemum, the white flowering daisy there. And then I have an assortment of different coneflowers, which look like they need some water. Some of them are a little bit wilty. Got this beautiful butterfly bush here. This is the, lo and behold, blue chip. We've got some of the mini indigo supertunias. Daylily is, I think this one, maybe red hot returns. It's one of the returns, meaning it's a reblooming daylily. The red alstroemeria you're seeing there is Inca Jolie. Clematis still waters. Alstroemeria Inca Ice. This one always steals the show here in this garden. Really a huge plant. And as we head around the corner here, we've got one of the new calla lilies. This is for 2022. This is Be My First Love. Such a beautiful pink color. And that's doing nice in this part sun location. One thing I have found out with these calla lilies is they don't like a lot of water. So kind of keep that in mind when you're placing them. Up against the house there is the little quick fire hydrangea. Snippet lime woodgilla is the lime green foliage. And let's take a look at what's blooming here under the deck. The Rebecca Goldstrom is starting to bloom. And in this area here, we have a lot of hostas, different hostas, some bleeding hearts, and there's a couple of stilbe that are kind of hidden, tucked in and hidden. The clematis, that's past its prime. So what you can do with these clematis is you can trim off these little, the leftover from the flowers if you want, or you can leave them. When you leave them, they're going to kind of dry up, and this is something that hummingbirds will use for nesting material. So leave them or trim them, whichever you want to do, but that is something that hummingbirds use. Up against the house, we have the Invincible Wee White hydrangeas. Planted in front of them are some of the new yellow lantana for 2022. And in front of my little Dutch people is the new lobellaria for 2022. As we look off into this little area here, we've got another one of the returns daylilies, rosy returns. This is what it is, it's rosy returns. And that other one earlier also was, actually no, that one isn't as red. This is rosy returns though. The coneflowers you're seeing, the pink coneflowers, are powwow wildberry. More of the caladiums. It looks like the Be My Sunshine yellow is doing better than the orange one. We've got Delicious Candy coneflower right there. And then in this area here is kind of just a random assortment. We've got some Ruby Giant. We also have some Frankly Scarlet, the Proven Winner Red. Clematis is blooming back here. We've got the Pink Mink, which is a beautiful pink one, along with, I think that's Venosa violacea, the purple. So that's just, the Pink Mink is just starting, so that's gonna be gorgeous once all that pink just erupts with color. In front of the shed here, we have the mini Mauvette, Invincible mini Mauvette hydrangeas, and those are doing beautifully as well. Such a pretty color. In front of those, we did a little mix of petunias. That's the Bubblegum, the Vista Paradise, and the Vista Silverberry. The clematis on the back trellis there is Jack Manny. We've lined this bed with the lemon coral sedum. That's the yellow sedum that you're seeing. And that's going to continue to fill out as the summer goes along. Some more of the Rosy Return Daylilies. And let's take a walk over to the next little garden area. So this garden is always fun to watch. Actually, all of these gardens are fun to watch throughout the different seasons to see just what's going on and what's blooming at what times. In this garden here, the main plant in the center, that's a standard Limelight hydrangea tree, and that is really nicely shaped this year. So I can't wait until that starts to bloom. We have the dwarf bloomerang lilacs, which are not blooming right now. Actually, let's go in. I take that back. They're starting to do a little bit of their rebloom. So with these dwarf bloomerang lilacs, and true of all the bloomerang lilacs, the first bloom of the season is going to be the best bloom or the most intense bloom. And then as the season goes on, they rebloom, although the rebloom's never quite as heavy as what that first bloom cycle of the season is. We have the My Monet Weigela, the beautiful variegated, and I'm going to get that at a different angle where the sun isn't so half sun, half shade. Red Sun Patience. Let's go in for a closer look here of the My Monet Weigela. Look at that beautiful foliage. Green and white. And then the tips have that nice dusting of pink on it. So even when this isn't flowering, which it usually is flowering in the spring, it has beautiful foliage color to add interest into the landscape. Also, we have the Atlas roses, and these smell wonderful right now. As I took the corner, I could absolutely smell the beauty of them. It's really a sweet scent, just loaded with flowers and buds. We'll head on back to the butterfly garden and see what's blooming back here. So in this front little area here that's fenced in, this is a whole assortment of different coneflowers. I like to mix and match just because I like to have a mixture of color. But you can see that the red one is, or the pink one here is really predominant, and it might even be seeding itself, and it's probably the oldest one in there. But there is about 5 or 6 different colors that have been planted. So I love to have an assortment of coneflowers in my garden. This bed is lined with the Sun Patience Pink Candy. In the past, I've done the white Sun Patience, and I wanted to kind of shake it up a little bit this year. You can see these look like they're dry, and they are. So we need to get a little bit more water on these. Another thing I want to point out with Sun Patience is they don't like fertilizer. So that's one plant that the more you fertilize it, the less flowers you're going to see. So keep that in mind if you're growing Sun Patience right now. This is a big hydrangea that is Bobo. And the interesting thing is, if you look at this Bobo compared to this Bobo, one is so much further along. We also have a beautiful butterfly bush. This is Miss Molly, and it's just starting to put on a little bit of color. I love that beautiful magenta up against the white here of the Bobo Hydrangea. In this little corner here, we have some Spigilla. I probably just said that wrong, but that's the red plant. And then we've got the purple, which is Stachys. Kind of a mirror look here with more coneflowers at this end of the garden. There's a little bit more assortment of color going on in this little patch. Got a beautiful lobelia here. Sonic Bloom Pink Weigela. It's going through its second bloom cycle right now. And you can see all those beautiful pink flowers. This is one that will bloom 2 or 3 times throughout the summer. And right now it's on its second cycle of blooms. We've got the Meteor Showers Verbena. This is a great plant if you're looking for pollinators or hummingbirds. White Wands Veronica. Some Kufia Vermillionaire. There's all kinds of pollinators in this garden right now. Some phlox. We have the fireworks grass here planted in this cobalt blue planter. In the middle of these bird houses, we have a Pugster Amethyst, which isn't blooming quite yet. Looks like I have some random milkweed, which is good because this is a butterfly garden. I want that for my monarchs. Here is a Be My Sunshine Calla Lily. That's doing wonderful. That's like a very lemony yellow. It's beautiful. Up front here we have Nepeta Cat's Pajamas, and this looks like it could use a little bit of a trimming. It is flowering right now, but we need to trim it back and let it reflush out again. So don't be afraid to trim your perennials if they're not blooming. Give them a trim because chances are they may rebloom for you if you do give them that light trimming. Got a beautiful delphinium here. I love the blues of delphiniums. I have this one in a tomato cage because it gets about 4 foot tall, and if I don't stake it, it'll fall right over. There definitely was branches in here that cracked off. So we're trying to, as we watch them sprout out, tuck them inside the cage so that it keeps them from cracking. I have another little cluster here of coneflowers. You can see there's oranges and pinks and yellows and reds. And those sometimes will seed themselves, and I let them do it because this garden, I want it to look tidy but wild, if that makes sense. Wild with the things I want it to have wild. Coneflowers and milkweed are things that I'm okay with that get wild. Another little milkweed here. This is Asclepias Cinderella. Got some more tall phlox there in the back. One thing when you have Asclepias is if you look for little holes on the plants, similar to something like that, or little brown pellets, which are actually poop, those usually are signs that you have some caterpillar activity. And the monarch caterpillars, they're striped, so if you see them, that's definitely a good sign. It's not something you want to get rid of because that is a caterpillar you are trying to attract into your garden. Here is the Firelight Hydrangea, budding up nicely. Just starting to crack a few little florets open, but this is going to be huge this year. So that's going to look really gorgeous once it starts to bloom. Let's take a head back towards the shade area. So in this area we have a large collection of hostas. Big hostas, small hostas, blue, yellow, chartreuse, white, all different variations of hostas. So I think when you're creating a hosta garden, it's always wise to mix colors and textures and sizes, because I think when you do that, it really makes the one next to it stand out. So if we had a garden with all, let's say, blue hostas, they really wouldn't look that impressive. But when you put it next to other colors, it makes the one next to it really pop. So I've got some holes, which means I need to add some of my new hostas in. The holes aren't because of rabbits. We have rabbits here and we have some deer, but they really don't seem to touch the hostas so much. So I think it's just certain plants after a while just kind of start dying off. Hostas are really hardy, but you can lose some every now and then. Tucked in here in the middle of these hostas, we have an Aurelia Sun King. So that'll get about 3 foot tall once it gets mature. So that'll just add a little different color and texture into the space as well. So for those of you that have hostas, what is your favorite color hosta? Or maybe you even know the name of your favorite hosta. I'd love to know what your favorite hosta is. As we take the corner, we get a little bit more sun into the picture, and you can see this bed has been lined with the white sun patience. So from up at the house, this white just really stands out, and it looks great up against all the different colors that are going on in this garden. So white matches everything, and white also kind of creates a luminary effect at night once it starts getting dark. Tucked in with these hostas, I have some astilbe. You can see the pink one in the back there, and then the red one. We've got a mini mauvette hydrangea, the pink one. We did little clusters of the red sun patience. They were left over from the other garden, so we kind of tucked them in here just for little clusters of color. We've got some heuchera in here, a few caladiums, another alstroemeria, that beautiful pink one. The white astilbe is Milk and Honey. The pink astilbes could be Maggie Daylily. Heuchera and Heucherella. The big hosta in the back is Empress Wu. We've got the lady in red fern up here at the top of the garden. Some more of the mini mauvette hydrangeas. Bobos. These two up front here starting to bloom are bobos. I can see that this garden here is a little bit dry as well. We had a lot of rain about a week ago, but it only lasts for so long. So we do have a sprinkler system that hits this garden, but it looks like we maybe need to increase it just a little bit. And the sure tell sign are these sun patience, those red ones that are really droopy. Some more heuchera. We've got Allium Serendipity here, not blooming, but you can see the buds are formed. Behind it is Clematis Jolly Good. Not huge flowers, but a lot of them. This is always such a very impressive clematis. We've got Ligularia Bottle Rocket. Some more of the stachys. Up in the top there, the Coreopsis, the orange and the yellow. And then some more of the incredible blush hydrangeas. So I point this out every year, but I'm going to point it out again. You see the two that are there that are really big and beautiful? And then there's this little runt next to it. So the reason is this little guy is so close to the tree is taking up virtually all the nutrients. So that plant is not getting the water it needs or the nutrients it needs. And I'm just noticing this here. Check out that giant root right next to it. So that definitely tells us that that plant is not getting the nourishment it needs. It's doing okay though, so we'll just leave it. We've got some Sweet Romance lavender blooming. That's looking really nice. And the Daylily area is starting to take on color. So this has about 20 or so different daylilies in this area, and there's just a mixture of all different kinds. And the reason I like to do that, like I did with the coneflowers, is just having all different colors kind of blooming at the same time and at different times. And that's what's happening here in this daylily garden. So some of these are single bloomers where they'll just bloom and be done. Others of these are repeat bloomers, which will kind of carry the color in this garden a little bit longer. We've got some beautiful Veronica. That's loaded with bumblebees. The orange is Nephophia, a red hot poker. That one is so pretty. I love yellow in the garden. A lot of people don't like yellow. Yellow is just not their color and not in their color scheme. But I think yellow is such a beautiful addition to really any garden. We switched up the sun patiens and just changed colors to sun patient purple for this area in the garden. In the back here, let's go take a look. We've got some daylilies that are full of buds, waiting to bloom. This here is a Rudbeckia, Henry Ehlers, that will be blooming later. In the back there is some more Henry Ehlers, some anemone. Glamour Girl Phlox is just starting to open with its coral blooms. We've got a hardy hibiscus here, the black, that's getting decimated by Japanese beetles. Look at all the holes. That's the sad thing. If you've got Japanese beetles, they just do a number on the hibiscus. Incredible. Oh, that is one plant. That thing is ginormous. The blooms are huge as well. And look at that. This gets sprinkled on every day, and there's not any flopping going on. So it's super large flowers, but excellent sturdy stems as well. So you don't have to worry about the flop going on with the Incredible. Here's another Bobo, and I would say this one here is actually the furthest along. Can you imagine that? Once it's in color, it is just going to be a giant ball of white. We've got the Invincible Spirit Hydrangea. The beautiful pink blooms. I think they look really nice up against the white there of Incredible. On the trellis here, we've got some Raguchi, some Princess Diana, Pink Mink, and Viva Polonia. Some more of the allium just waiting to bloom. Spirea that is done blooming. Here's a beautiful daylily. This is the Ruby Spider. This is a really huge flower. So if you like red and you like big flowers, Ruby Spider is really a large flower. Here's my Proudberry bush. So this plant really steals the show at the end of the summer, but right now, or actually in the fall, right now though, it's putting on its flowers and it's just starting to create those berries. So there's some pollinating going on with the bees. This will be really pretty this fall once all those little pollinated flowers turn to berries. Primal Scream Daylily is a really large orange blooming daylily. We have that paired with hardy hibiscus. This is the black foliage kind. One thing I want to point out too is a lot of times when these hibiscus are shipped, these black ones, the leaves are quite green. And even on here you can see that some of the leaves are green. So what you get is when they're grown in a greenhouse, they're not getting the proper ultraviolet light to make them go that purple black color. But out in the natural sun is when they take on that darker color. And that's why we're seeing underneath here a lot of green, because the top canopy is blocking the bottom canopy, preventing it from getting the sunlight for the inner parts of those plants to turn that purpley black. So if yours is green when it comes, it will darken up once you get it out into the sunshine. This area here is lined with the Lobellaria White Knight. Behind it is the brand new for 2022 Vista Jazzberry Petunias. Behind those is a Mystic Illusion Dahlia. Got a beautiful tall phlox there. And then here on the trellis, we've got the Raguchi Clematis, Montana Malines, and Candida. Let's go in for a closer look here at Raguchi. Raguchi is a bell-shaped clematis, so unlike other clematises, also Montana Maline has a different type of a shape to it. Candida is a little bit of a smaller flower. And actually, you know what? Let's take that back. That's not Candida, that's Haldine. Haldine. A little bit smaller flower, but lots of them. Look at that Raguchi. It is like totally taking over that trellis. Raguchi is a fairly long blooming clematis too. Like most clematis won't bloom all summer, but Raguchi does have quite a long bloom cycle on it. Got the orange smoothie Daylily. Wine and Roses Weigela. Autumn Joy Sedum. And a huge Limelight shrub. So that's going to be really beautiful this fall or later on in the season when it blooms as well. So this area in the garden is newly planted. This just got planted this spring. It's been kind of a blank slate for many years, so we finally decided let's just put something in the garden. So we did. So over here we have some of the tall phlox. Again, this is very young and immature with some lupin. Got these beautiful, I think this is the Sombrero Salsa or Salsa Red. Beautiful, beautiful red. In the back there, we've got the Onyx and Pearls Penstemon. Got the new Jacob's Ladder. Look at that great foliage color. This one is called Heaven Sent. That blooms in the spring. Got a nice Daylily. Not Daylily, goodness gracious. Sedum for fall color. Stokesia, that's got a lot of buds. Some poppies in the back. I don't have any poppies in the garden, so I'm kind of excited to watch the poppies. We have another incredible hydrangea. Some more poppies. Look at this beautiful flower here of incredible. And then basically we mirror imaged it on this side of the garden. So it's a mirror image from one side to the other. And I'm excited to watch as the space starts to fill in and grow. So there's a lot going on in the garden right now. I think July, honestly, is my favorite month out in the garden. It's when the hydrangeas really start blooming and things I think just look the most colorful. Although every season has great color. Is there a season that you find that you just really love your garden the most? Right now, I definitely have to say for me, it is July. So I hope you enjoyed walking through the garden. Stay tuned for other videos. I get out in many gardens and I want to show you all the beautiful things that are blooming. And I think it's really important too that you can see them in like a natural setting. So you can see how big the plants get and what they look like planted when they're planted with other things. If there is any questions you have, feel free to leave your comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you can follow along on all my garden walk adventures. This is Heidi from Garden Crossings.